Doctor Who is dead. I'm sick of it. Everything was amazing until Church on Ruby Road flopped its way onto our screens and ruined Christmas and the beautiful history of Doctor Who. So you're saying the Doctor dances and sings now? That's stupid. The Doctor doesn't sing and dance. The Doctor is dark and edgy. He broods and acts seriously. He doesn't dance. That's just as bad as when they had him settle down with a house and have little dinner parties with Donna's family. I mean, is he stupid? He has a time and space machine with infinite possibilities. You're telling me that he's just gonna go sit around all day eating hummus and talking about his tax returns? That's not Doctor Who, that's boring. And don't get me started on Bi-Generation. What a disgusting, insulting erasure of lore that spits in the face of the show's legacy. They may as well have every Doctor turn into David Tennant at this point. The 60th anniversary specials never explained why the 13th Doctor turned into David Tennant, and even if they did, it still would have sucked, just like the 13th Doctor's whole era. I mean, the Timeless Children? Hello? You can't just change the entire backstory of the Doctor like that. We know everything about the Doctor because he only started existing 5 minutes before the show began. Chris Chibnall is a hack with no talent, everyone knows it. All his episodes suck and he can't write the Doctor well. I just couldn't prove it. He covered his tracks, he got that idiot Stephen Moffat to lie for him. You think this is bad? This chicanery? He's done worse. Are you telling me the 13th Doctor just happens to become a woman? No, he orchestrated that. The Doctor can't be a woman, I don't care how many times it happened before. Time Lords can't change gender. They can become aliens and grow extra heads, but they can't have boobs. It's unacceptable how this deviates from the very specific idea of the character in my head. I trusted this man, and I shouldn't have. We took him into our own show. What were we thinking? He'll never change. He'll never change. Ever since he was a kid, always the same. Couldn't keep his opinions to himself. But not our Chibnall. Well, not our precious Chibnall. Stealing them blind with bad ideas. And he gets to be showrunner? What a sick joke. Stephen Moffat was so much better because he actually understood Doctor Who. Chibnall was a terrible showrunner and Moffat should have stayed forever, is what an idiot would say. Stephen Moffat is also the worst thing to ever happen to Doctor Who in its entire history. This absolute hack fraud brought back the first Doctor and made him a sexist. You heard me right. The only thing worse than this is how he brought back Gallifrey and the Time Lords and did absolutely nothing with them. Like, are you kidding me? The show spent so much time building this up just for that crap series finale where they just stand around and talk. The Time Lords don't stand around and talk. They're not scholars or boring people. They're cool warriors with laser guns and magic dissolving gloves. Hellbent is a disaster of a series finale. It's so bad and everyone knows it. We were promised an epic showdown and all we got was the Doctor becoming an arsehole and killing people. That's not the Doctor, he'd never do anything like that. And it's clearly not because I just don't understand the commentary of the narrative because I know everything, I'm never wrong. Just like how I'm not wrong about Clara being a ridiculous Mary Sue. I mean, they may as well have just called the show Clara Who at that point, since it was suddenly all about her. Since when was Doctor Who all about the companion? It's pathetic. The last good Doctor Who companion was Amy Pond, except she sucked too. You're telling me this woman and her dorky boyfriend are the parents of River Song? Are you kidding me? That's just as stupid as when they made the Doctor an ugly old man. What were they thinking? The Doctor isn't old. He's a dashing, handsome hero because he's that specific and narrow characterization I formed in my head after watching Matt Smith and David Tennant. And the worst part is that they made him old twice. Moffat seriously thought he could just walk in and reveal that there was some hidden Doctor the others just forgot about? It's easy to see how Moffat ruined Doctor Who, just like Chibnall. They both threw away decades of canon for no reason and expected us to like it. Everything Moffat did was a disaster. He rebooted the universe twice. Talk about being out of ideas. It's clear that the show peaked with David Tennant and Russell T Davies because those were the years I grew up with, so that makes them the objective best ones. David Tennant should have never left. The show died in 2010 and you can't convince me otherwise. All you had to do was keep the 10th Doctor and the show would have been bigger than Star Wars. Jarvis Cocker in space is clearly the most sustainable and timeless direction of the show. That never would have gotten old. But what the hell was all that garbage in Series 3? We're suddenly meant to believe that there's another Time Lord out there and he's an evil version of the Doctor, so the Doctor just becomes a goblin and then turns into Jesus to defeat him. That made me embarrassed to be a Doctor Who fan, especially on top of all that nonsense about moving statues. Can't you just hit them with a hammer? It's stupid. Russell T Davies was a one-hit wonder. It all went downhill after the 9th Doctor left. Especially when the 10th Doctor just regrew a hand after it was cut off. I guess he can just do that now. Chop his head off and he'll just sprout another. There's no stakes anymore. It's all been ruined. Series 1 was the best and most pure Doctor Who has ever been. Reinventing the show and making the Daleks good again. But what the hell was Russell T Davies thinking making the Doctor a Northerner and his companion was a chav? They may as well have made EastEnders in space. It's awful. And don't get me started on how Series 1 just outright erases classic Who and acted like it never happened. I wanted more of the 8th Doctor and how he was half human, that stuff was awesome. But instead they decided to just kill off all the Time Lords off screen and make the Doctor some sort of tragic, traumatized shell of a person rather than a cool and quirky hero. So the Time Lords and Daleks just happened to wipe each other out off screen? Isn't that convenient? Have you ever heard of something called Show Don't Tell, Russell? And why are the Time Lords in a war to begin with? They're not warriors, they're political scholars, manipulating schemes and getting up to no good. They're not bloody Starship Troopers. Doctor Who should have never come back in 2005. Hell, it shouldn't have even come back in 1996. What the hell were they thinking trying to make Doctor Who American? The Doctor teams up with some random woman and a gang member to fight the Master, who is now suddenly a cum snake in the body of that one guy from Runaway Train. What were they thinking? If they were going to bring back Doctor Who, they should have brought back Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Aldred and finally made season 27. Wait, what do you mean they would have made Ace a Time Lord? That's ridiculous. Humans can't be Time Lords. And why the hell would they want the Doctor to actually be some sort of reincarnated god? Nobody would ever want that in Doctor Who because it's dumb. And while we're on the topic, the 6th and 7th Doctor's eras were way too violent and edgy. They didn't understand what Doctor Who was meant to be. They just made the lead characters arseholes rather than fun and eccentric time travellers. How dare they ever try to change up how the Doctor should act? The 4th Doctor was perfect, a delightfully childish and playful incarnation, but actually no, he was too playful. He spent the whole time taking the piss out of the show itself and making it seem like a joke instead of cutting edge sci-fi. And what was with all that backstage drama? Tom Baker married one co-star and divorced her instantly, bullied another, and then got sad when his friend Elizabeth Sladen left the show. What a selfish and horrible actor. He should have been privileged to play the Doctor. But it's easy to see why he became an arsehole, because half his episodes of Monsters sucked. Sontarans tripping over sun loungers, evil bubble wrap, shape-shifting jellyfish. Who came up with this crap? And he regenerated by falling off a telescope. How embarrassing. He should have just held on tighter. Again, is he stupid? Sidney Newman wasn't dead by this point, but if he was, he'd have been rolling in his grave. The 4th Doctor, more like the Fast Doctor. The 4th Doctor era spat in the face of the 3rd Doctors. Man, what an incredible time for Doctor Who. They gave us a cool James Bond Doctor with quips and fistfights. The Brigadier was incredible and it was cool to see him put the Doctor in his place all the time. But what the hell were they thinking by stranding him on Earth? This is Doctor Who, not Z-Cars. I don't want to see endless B-roll, British fields and industrial estates with bad CSO. I want alien worlds and time travel. It was interesting for like one season, but then it got really stale and the stories were so woke. Who cares about pollution causing giant maggots? I don't want to watch 6-part stories alluding to the EU and forcing this diversity down our throats. Like a feminist journalist? What a joke. Politics ruined this era of Doctor Who and they desperately tried to save it by letting the Doctor travel in time and space again. But why the hell did the other 2 Doctors suddenly show up? That shouldn't be allowed to happen. What about paradoxes and stuff? Why would the 1st and 2nd Doctors ever be scared of anything ever again when they've met their future? Talk about jumping the shark. It's absolutely pathetic, and it was clearly just an attempt to cover up all the wokeness being forced into the show by the communist writers. Doctor Who should have been cancelled in 1969 just like it was intended to. It looked its best in black and white and it never got better than it was in the 60s. But the 2nd Doctor era took everything that worked in the 1st Doctors and ruined it. So the Doctor is just a homeless guy now? Put some effort in, you're meant to be a cool action hero like I envision you in my head. And the Cybermen were cool I guess, but why did they have to go and get rid of the Daleks, the most popular thing in the entire show? Are you stupid? No wonder ratings started to fall. The BBC didn't even care enough to keep churning out constant, boring Dalek stories that have aged like milk ever since. And what the hell is a Time Lord? These guys just show up right at the end and apparently have the power to throw the Doctor into a screen and stretch his body around like it's Photoshop goofy effects. Who came up with this? I'm glad the BBC wiped so many episodes from this era because it sucked. Giant hypnotic crabs, killer seaweed, Patrick Troughton playing a kind of racist Mexican alter ego. You can tell it was the 60s because they were clearly smoking something when they paraded this crap out in front of us. I mean, don't even get me started on the story where the Doctor and his companions go to a magical fairy tale realm with unicorns and Blackbeard. All the wonderful legacy and whimsy of the 1st Doctor era just thrown in the bin like that. It's disgusting and vile. Why did they ever have to go and get rid of William Hartnell? I wanted him to keep playing the Doctor until he crumbled into literal dust because he owed it to the fans. And when he crumbles into dust, just keep recasting him until the end of time. You just can't get rid of the Doctor like that. He's the main character. What the hell is regeneration and why did it never come up before? You're telling me that this whole time the Doctor could just die and then become someone else? What was the point of him ever trying to escape death then? It completely ruins his era in retrospect. He shouldn't have been an alien. It's too unrelatable. Instead, he should have been a human from the future like they originally planned, and like we saw in the Peter Cushing movies, which, by the way, sucked. You can't have Doctor Who without an actual Doctor. Who the hell is this guy? Why is it just an adaptation of stories I've already seen? Not canon. Doctor Who really went downhill when they started messing around with the Doctor's backstory and introducing random people like the Monk, who is just a guy and happens to be like the Doctor, I guess. So much for the Doctor and the TARDIS being unique. I guess anyone can have them now. And don't get me started on all those stupid bug-eyed monsters. Sidney Newman expressly wanted Doctor Who to be educational to kids and show them real human history, but the Daleks had to just come in and ruin all that, because the writers were so lazy and out of ideas. What happened to the first story, which showed us an interesting glimpse into the past with caveman politics and an exploration of technological advancements? The show could have had such a rich heritage and educational potential, but they threw it all away like cowards. And to be honest, the cavemen sucked. What was Newman thinking? You introduce us to a time machine and the first thing you give us is a bunch of actors in rags banging rocks around. Hack fraud. Doctor Who was at its best in the very first episode, An Unearthly Child. What a rich atmosphere, building up this mysterious character of a policeman wandering through the smog of 1960s London. What was his story? Oh, I guess we'll never know, because instead we got given all of this slop of a police box that's somehow bigger on the inside. That's impossible, those things are tiny. How dare you insult our intelligence like that? Doctor Who was ruined the moment that police officer walked off screen. But actually, if you ask a true fan like me, it never should have been made in the first place. Doctor Who was clearly ripping off French writer Arnold Gallopin's character Dr. Omega. This book from 1906 is clearly Doctor Who. He even looks like William Hartnell. This beautifully innocent and optimistic sci-fi novel that I've definitely read was clearly stolen by that hack fraud Sidney Newman, who decided to turn it woke and twist it into a pathetic, weak show with no ideas and crappy monsters. It disgusts me. It's clearly not just a coincidence, and the whole thing is an elaborate scheme by the woke mind virus mafia trying to impose their agenda across the decades with all of these hack fraud agents doing their work for them. Wake up and repeat with me. Doctor Who is ruined. And an extra special thank you to my Asbantium level patrons, Fallon Cortez and Nathan Gibson, my Diamond level patron, Glenna Clark, my Platinum level patrons, Matthew Burns and Maximilian Foreman, and all my Gold level patrons, Daniel Shillito, Francois AK Line Vortex, Lee Marie Farrell, Thomas R, and Thomas Price. Thank you so much for your support.